Well, then I would like to introduce you to David, our guest speaker for today, who is a technology expert when it comes to wildlife, which sort of, links very well to this idea of collars. But David's going to be talking more about the idea of drones in wildlife conservation and how that works. Now, I met David first, was it 2 years ago now, I think it's two
Was it
years ago
with
at the
the
Woodford Folk Festival. I'm not sure if I was giving a talk or you were giving a talk or whatever, David. But we but we met and chatted and definitely found some synergies there. So it's been a delight working with David so far. So David is currently in Kenya. That's hence I'm pretending to be in Kenya. Um, David will tell us a little about what he's doing in Kenya. That might be a good start. So I'm going to pass over to David and put the speaker on. Here we go.
Thanks very much. Hi, everyone. Jumbo, should probably say, shouldn't I, from Nairobi. Yeah, it was great to meet Sarah, and it's really been invaluable at so many levels. Can you see my screen all right?
Yes, all good.
Ah, good. All right. So, yeah, I really tried to bookend what I was going to talk about, but it's not an easy thing. So I'm going to ramble around a little bit. It's going to be hopefully a lot of fun, excuse me, and quite informal. I've only just checked into this room in Kenya, and the internet is questionable, but we'll just go with it. So what are we doing? Firstly, I'm trying to answer this question, where conservation stands today, and I think we've got the data to know that. Where we need to go to, how do we get there together? I mean, that together part is most exciting part of this. So founded and co-organised and part funding this forum, which is a range of different events I'll talk
David, your
about
sound is
shortly.
a little bit low. If there's a way to put your microphone a bit closer, it might help. Go.
How about that?
Yes,
Radio
much better.
check?
Well done.
Good. Okay. So, yeah, we are behind when it comes to conservation. We do have tools, I believe anyway, that let us catch up. And part of this is a wild drone project, an effort I'll talk about as well in a second. AI drones, computer vision. We need to scale efforts. We need better data to give us visibility at scale. But the progress really only comes from when we share that insight. Um, when it's coordinated and we can turn that into collective action across borders and sectors. These borders are a real issue. So I'm going to reference Africa a lot, but please relate that if most of you in Australia, relate that back to Africa, to Australia, see what Australia can learn and vice versa. And I really was excited with my daughter here on the call, Michaela. We went to the Ecological Society of Australia conference, and a clear success in Australia is the growing recognition and integration of Indigenous knowledge alongside Western science. I think that's just remarkable, and the rest of the world can learn from that, ignoring that we've lost, nearly 30 mammals and 100 endemic species over the last couple of hundred years. So, who's been to Africa? I don't know, can you should show some hands there? Click on the chat button down the bottom. Many of us been to Africa. Who wants to go to Africa? Any of you been to Nairobi? So I honestly notice a lot of patterns everywhere. While I'm in Africa, it's great. It's a very vibrant place, and perhaps the air traffic controller on me helps me do that. But you can take the person out of air traffic control, can't take the air traffic control out of the person. So one of the themes I wanted to put in today was how we turn field patterns into decisions, and I think this is just a great shot of the Bayberry zebra. I'm pretty sure that's a real photo, by the way. It's not adjusted. And conservation tech is really moving quickly in Kenya, more so, I think, than most other countries in Africa, and partly because the challenges are immediate. The partners are all in the same place, hence why we're running a forum here. I'd actually been to Africa dozens of times before. I consulted with the World Bank and ran volunteer projects for a decade, and I never, other than the occasional marabou stalk in Tanzania, I never saw any wildlife. So it's been great to be able to see some lately. I go back a little way, referencing the World Bank and other efforts. On the left-hand side, we've been running drone conferences and drone flying competitions since 2017. Lake Victoria, Mwanza, Western Tanzania, Lake Kivu between Rwanda and DR Congo. With the African Drone Forum, we had 1,000 people attend that, and that was really seminal when it came to drone use across various practices in Africa. But we really only touched slightly on the environmental piece. South Asia Drone Forum, we ran that in Kathmandu in 2025, and we had all 7 regional countries attend and had sessions together. There, I run a a drones and conservation track, and that was super exciting. And then just before that in Kenya, we ran the Elevate Africa Drone Summit to try and get an understanding of what happens here. And that was a great success as well. So, real world efforts and field work. As I mentioned, I'm going to jump around a little bit. I feel my happy place has been in the outback in Africa. So, running impactful drone based use cases. We also do a lot of testing of bidirectional medical supply chains, especially where there is no transport modality in place. This photo on the left, I really like these two. The one on the top is of a drone port on Juma Island on Lake Victoria, where we're flying medicines to and from and mapping. And everything's local. You know, the fishing nets are the fence posts, the bamboo, fishing rods, and all the people who are meant to be outside of the fence for safety are all under that little shed we've got there. So the safety kind of works in one way or other. And on the bottom left is a bamboo drone that's made by Born Love, the fellow on the right-hand side, made locally, easy to repair, cheap, especially with Born Love's skills. So a lot of really cool stuff happening, you know, locally. And that's a really interesting point that I want to bring up through this, is that I feel that there's quite a divide between the rich north and low to middle income countries, especially when it comes to conservation, whereas a lot of the wildlife and habitat that we need to protect is in the global south. So, you know, who gets what data from what country and then how is it shared is really, really essential to understand and to try and free up. I mentioned why Kenya. Wildlife conservancies across Australia, across Africa. Namibia's got.
Oh, okay, cool. So I got
Hello,
stuff
Camilla.
for,
There's my wife chatting there.
Hi, Camilla.
So yeah, Namibia, nearly 90 conservancies, and that's about 20% of its territories. Botswana, there's a number of conservancies. Tanzania, South Africa, Zimbabwe, you'd know most of those ones. Kenya has, well, you know, 230 plus conservancies. It's got 20 or so associations of conservancies, and altogether, these have contributed to the stabilization and the recovery of wildlife populations. It's absolutely stunning what's happening and what can happen further. And it's a cross-border, and I'll discuss this cross-border piece, especially Kenya into Tanzania and the Serengeti and areas. Yeah, so and a lot of the money that comes into Kenya comes in because of tourism for wildlife. What are the animals in Africa? I don't know. I couldn't see any hands before because I'm on presentation mode, but these are some of my great photos. You'll see how professional I am as a photographer all around Africa. On the right-hand side, however, freshwater snails. And the flukes on those snails spread bilharzia, especially in these Rift Valley lakes. I didn't know that when I first started swimming in them. And these cause direct deaths between 10 and 20,000 a year. But actually, there's an enormous long-term burden through chronic illness. It brings organ damage, etc. That's not really the full focus, but this is wildlife and one of its challenges. So what actually really kills people? It's a dire situation. It's a terrible topic, but I just thought I'd bring it up. Disease vectors, viruses, and transport risks. So they are the big ones. They dominate mortality. Wildlife does not. Not that we normally understand wildlife to be. Um, People far more likely are going to be killed by disease and transport, and especially when we talk disease, we talk HIV/AIDS, malaria, than by wildlife. While far more people are killing animals through hunting and poaching than the other way around. So that fear focuses on wildlife, but the data points elsewhere. I mean, I think we've probably all heard the story about the coconut falling on your head versus getting eaten by a shark. So mosquitoes, over 700,000 deaths per year, mostly malaria. 95% of global malaria deaths occur in Africa. So it's the largest animal ink killer. Venomous snakes. That slide's not completely correct. It's between 80 and 120,000 deaths per year globally. Half of those happen in India. We could actually potentially use drones to deliver anti-venom, and it's been trialed. We have the black mamba here in Africa. They call it the seven-step snake. I'm sure you can imagine how far you can walk when you've been bitten by one. And so, yeah, there are a reasonable number of deaths from that, but 400,000 for AIDS, from HIV/AIDS. Sub-Saharan Africa is still the main issue, of course, in road traffic injuries, 250,000 a year in Africa. Why does that all matter? Of course it matters. We're talking about conservation in a place that's got multiple challenges across many regions and areas. Human hunters, we kill through poaching and other, sometimes legal methods. We kill over 500 lions annually in Africa. In Africa, lions kill 9 humans. So, yeah, but that data is a couple of years old, by the way. But you get the impression there, the idea. We are killing a lot more than we should. And even if you look at Australia, the last couple of days there's been released on the numbers of kangaroos culled and wildlife culls, and it's far in excess of what it was 2 years ago. So these are not just African issues. I'm lucky enough to be involved in this Atlas of Migration. It's a really important piece, migration. We have huge migrations with all sorts of different animals in the ocean, etc. So some of the stunning African migrations are quite amazing. There's the map on the right that you can click on those links to all of those migrations that are listed. And we're just about to publish a new guidance piece, the Global Initiative of Ungulate Migration. And I feel, being a drone person, and you've got a hammer, everything's a nail, that we could use drones quite successfully in monitoring those ecological processes that persist across these migrations. At the moment, we have a conventionally piloted aircraft. We fly it out there occasionally. Someone clicks on the buttons and counts one. And here's an aircraft in South Sudan flying over the largest known migration in the planet. So from Ethiopia into South Sudan, 5 to 7 million animals migrating. We don't really know enough about it yet, which is the problem. We need data and we need it now because animals, diversity, wildlife are disappearing quite quickly. This is a multi-species seasonal system. You can see from that map on the right, it may not be that clear, but that's the wild tang. And I'll drill into that in just a second. Having a person on board a plane with a clicker looking out the window, for me, it just doesn't cut the mustard. It's great. We get other data about migrations from talking to people, from looking up historical information. But now we can use Earth Observatory, satellites, drones, other aircraft, etc., camera traps. Put that all together, have the data, share the data appropriately, and make sure that we can work across borders. The real question is how we monitor all of this in real time, and that is kind of complex. Let me just talk a bit more about these migrations. The left-hand side is Boma Gambela, Ethiopia into South Sudan, so it's cross-border. And on the right-hand side is pretty much contained in South Sudan. The White Nile goes through South Sudan. It splits up, the different migrations. That's a permanent feature. But the right-hand slide, sorry, I just click on the next button. The right-hand slide here shows the number of fences that have been built in the last 5 years. So the number of fences being built is increasing. That, of course, reduces the ability for animals to migrate. You notice they cleverly pick these locations because this is the crossover of the Serengeti Mara from Tanzania into Kenya. On the left, that's the Grant's zebra. And then you can also see those protected areas are the green areas. There's still quite a number of green areas. Migration is about survival. Animals have to move. They need to move for food, for climate escape, for breeding. And so if we put up barriers, roads, railway, fences, people, then we stop those. And have a look at this atlas. There's some pretty amazing stories there. I then want to talk a bit about the coastal marine, coastal, freshwater, and wetlands piece. I don't have enough time to drill down in all of this, of course, but if you've ever seen this Darwin's Nightmare, it's a really interesting piece by Hubert Salper, and it documents the catastrophic ecological society impact from the Nile perch. If you don't know, we introduced the Nile perch, we being humans, back into the 50s and 60s into late Victoria. It's a predatory fish. It grows up to 200 kilograms or more. It's been absolutely fantastic for people's survival through work, through food, through factories, export. However, by boosting this fishing industry, it's also decimated hundreds of indigenous cichlids, depending on which language you want to speak it in. And over 200 species are extinct in the wild now, because of the introduction of the perch. So that center photo is Lake Victoria. It's a photo taken from Wanza. All of those lights are fishing people out there. There's hundreds of thousands at any one time, at night, all night, with little lights trying to catch fish with the insects buzzing around them. It's a tough gig. On the right-hand side, not much different. This is Lake Kivu between Congo and Rwanda, but a different fishing vessel. 3 lashed together canoes, all paddled in unison through a sing-song motion so they understand when to paddle forwards, etc. And again, lights, nets suspended on poles between those canoes, and fishing is the main employee and area that's positive there. Sorry, I'm jet lagged. I use that as an excuse. By the way, that Lake Kivu, you might know, is a limnic lake. So it's got a huge amount of dissolved natural carbon dioxide in it and methane. And every now and then that belches. So don't swim in there. One happened in Cameroon, nearly 2,000 people died and a whole lot of animals. So, this is an interesting place to be working. Let's go further out to the coastline. This is great news. The Our Ocean Conference will be in Mombasa in Kenya on the coastline to the southeast of Nairobi in a few months. This is the first time OOC has been to Africa. It's really, really exciting. Last year was Korea. And really what the Our Ocean Conference is trying to achieve is what the Atlas of Ungulate Migration is showing us on land. It's trying to show that we have a shared responsibility, we have a shared action across borders, but also we have international high seas over oceans. So, it complicates things even more. It should allow for free space, but it is complex, and about some certain leaders of the world who want to get into that high seas area and mine it as much as possible. Hello, Bernadette. Bernadine, how are you going? Connectivity is critical. Land and marine migrations cross borders and jurisdictions, so we require coordinated sort of trans-boundary governments. The High Seas Treaty.
Can you put yourself on mute, please? That'd be awesome. Thank you.
If you're not across it, the High Seas Treaty was ratified, so legally committed, became into force, I think started in September. It's recently got over the line. So on the maps on the left, orange, signed up but not yet fully ratified, right? So the political support's there, but no legally bounding process. White and grey, not signed up or no status yet. You look at Africa, Kenya's in the green, which is great. Or this is orange, I'm sorry, but there's a way to go. But there's a lot of areas that have not signed up. On the right-hand side, just an example, the first of many, of a lot of cetacean movements around Africa. You can see how important it is. And we only have a little bit of data, but that data shows us that we need to protect these regions. We actually have a lot more data than ever before, but not enough yet to manage the ocean at scale. Obviously, the ocean is such a good place, such a big place, and these maps, I tried to pick maps that would show us the issue, how important these habitats are. The protection is still very much fragmented. Same with the east coast of Australia. Sharks are really threatened now, and there are only some areas where they are protected, and yet the sharks transit between those areas and there's absolutely no protections. So the High Seas Treaty is a really good step forward. We have the science, we're building up this data. Now that governance really, really needs to catch up. And then AI, how do we go forwards? We get the data. How do we assess that data? iNaturalist is a great platform for generating biodiversity data. It's global scale, and also work like the World Research Institute. This paper is really cool. There's a lot of them around from Amazon, Google, great big groups. But AI for Nature, have a look at that. How can we turn the data into practical conservation insight? Really especially in undersurveyed regions, much like Africa. So the amazing view from above. These are photos thanks to my friends from the Wild Drone project, and I'll talk about that in a second. But drones, computer vision, and AI all together. Look at these great shots, not disturbing the animals. We're not putting the people at risk who are getting the data. And as long as that data is shared appropriately, then everything's good. A few great photos. I think Steve's on the call. Great photos of our hackathon in Kenya every year on the bottom left. This year we have over 30 drones coming into country. They start arriving over the next weeks. A few of the PhDs, we have 13 PhDs in this Wild Drone European Union funded project. A few of the 13 PhDs are already here. We go up to Old Pejeta and Pala in a week or so for 10 days of flying. And outside of that, I've also been engaging in a lot of other groups through conservation. I'm lucky enough to be the chair of the Royal Air Society's drone group and secretary of the Society of Conservation Biology Drone and Data Group. Lots of messages are about how do we use drones safely, legally, with ethical guidance, and navigate through the permissions process. And we're building a community of practice for that, which we will announce at the forum I'm just about to speak about. And why does this wild drone project exist? The experts are many on this. We have a great team. It's not me. I'm really the practitioner. But there are significant risks. And I'm a risk manager, so we look at the risk to the biologist. Here's Lucy on the right-hand side, looking down, flying a drone, looking at the information, and you just never know when there's, some sort of wildlife sneaking up to surprise Lucy or any of our PhDs or other people involved. So we need robust safety systems and procedures. It's not just for the flying, but adequate training and protection of all of our people involved when we step out of the cars. The last few minutes I'll talk about the Global Conservation Tech and Drone Forum. Michaela's on the call. She's organising the Women in Conservation Forum. I won't dwell on this slide. There's a lot of information on it. Obviously, a huge number of events. We have 3 tracks: global drones, behind the data, and connected environments, and we cover everything that we possibly can. I talked about connecting the dots. These are all the different drone groups in conservation, or as many as I can find, and not many of these are working in isolation. So one of the most important, exciting things is we're getting everyone to present on where we are now. Let's talk to each other and stop duplicating what we're doing. The exciting pieces now, the last few minutes. Michaela's running this Women in Conservation Forum. It is a premier event, March the 2nd in Nairobi here. Focus, visibility, mentorship, skills transfer, inclusion, storytelling. It has workshops. It runs just before World Wildlife Day and it heralds International Women's Day. So we're looking at highlighting leadership and accessing gaps. It's going to be live streamed out into various girls groups, into schools. I just can't talk more about this. It's such a great event. Well done, Michaela. Thanks to Sarah, part of this effort. I'll show you a bit more in a second, but also part of it, we have Voices from the Sky. So conservation education, we want it to be inspiring and accessible and locally relevant, which is super important. We want to take the storytelling and conservation science and technology like drones and data, link that all together and create youth engagement. I met with a group from Tanzania and across Africa yesterday, and they're providing a lot of support for this. On the left, we're designing with the support of my sister-in-law, fantastic imagery of drones in Africa, and we're asking kids to also add to that. So we will promote this and produce an anthology that called Voices from the Sky. The other part of this is that we are providing a large number of books for kids who turn up, for people in education, for any women's groups, for any girls groups. And Sarah, thank you so much for your support on this. We have a huge bag of books that Qatar and British Airways didn't charge me for bringing over here, and she maps from Cairns. And also yesterday I met with Conservation Nation and Running Wild and girls from Tanzania. She is heard. Have a look at this. It's just remarkable. And all of these will be displayed and given to the libraries of schools, etc. We have a lot of drone use cases in conservation. These are tech challenges. So we're aiming with the books, the anthology at the younger kids. We're also aiming at anyone who wants to be technically more savvy, get these opportunities. We really want to build green careers, and once people understand a bit more about conservation, they will look after it more. We know that. The people who call in poachers these days are the people who are neighbours with the conservancies, because they know how valuable the conservancies are, what they get out of the conservancies. So I won't dwell on this one, but please reach out to me and ask about this. We will be announcing this community of practice for drones and conservation, and that will have leading countries. And the exciting for this call is that Borneo will be one of those areas. It's an island with 3 countries in it. That's a big challenge. We'll have Namibia, Botswana, Guatemala, Nepal. What can they learn from the countries who are doing this well? What can we all learn from each other? It's to help drone use in conservation prosper. If you get a chance and you're using drones in conservation, stick them on the map. Michaela's also running a research project on that. Dylan, our son, is helping on that. And you can click on any of these links. I think there's 120 projects on there now. Let me just finalize with a slide on the forum. We have 150 speakers, over 120 conservation tech partners globally, more than 40 conservation organizations attending from Africa. And where does that leave us? I really like this. I thought about this a lot. There's a girl out there who loves wildlife, right? Never met a scientist. There's a boy, never seen a drone. And they're growing up in these ecosystems we're trying to protect, right? So for many people across Africa and other low middle income countries, it's something that conservation is something that people look at, they watch, but they just don't see themselves in it. Yet they can be. Conservation STEM book outreach. Thanks, Sarah and team. It gets to a school, it gets to a kid. They've never seen one. It's not just the book, it's permission. So these kids just see themselves, they can be scientists, rangers, storytellers, engineers. From this effort, we want to encourage the next generation. We want them to say that they belong in conservation. That's so important. Your story matters, their story matters, the landscape matters. Let's do this together. Thank you, Asante Sana.
Wow, that was magnificent. Well done, David. There is so much hope there, isn't there, everybody? It's just so much going on and so much potential hope. I'm sure that we've got questions for David. I'm going to start you off while you think again. So, David, one thing that I was wondering about while you're talking about drones, specifically in Africa, is are poachers using drones? And if so, how is that combated?
Yeah, Sarah, that's a great question. And we know definitely drones are being used by poachers, also in any sort of habitat reduction areas, tree logging, etc. And the idea really is to just stay ahead of that. How is it being combated? There are tools, for example, Earth Ranger is a platform that a lot of conservancies use where they monitor where the lions are, they monitor where their rangers are, and they know where the tourists are. And what we're trying to develop is a system where the drone locations that are used for normal purposes are mapped on Earth Ranger. So if a ranger sees a drone, they can have a look at Earth Ranger and say, oh, okay, this could be nefarious. And so call it in. But when it comes to counter drone activities, it's pretty difficult. But by the way, drones can be used for perimeter monitoring. Most of the poaching happens full moon, nighttime. We know that they know where the areas are, and if you can have drones constantly monitoring that with looking for animals, of course, but looking for wire snares and people poaching, it's a real advantage.
Yeah, that's a serious advantage. That's a good one. Okay, who's got a question for David? Thank you. That was magnificent. Who have we got? Rhonda, what would you like to ask? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah. One question I get asked when I mention the possibility of drones for wildlife surveys is, does it affect the wildlife? So I'm just wondering if any of the land animals tend to notice the drones, if they're bothered by them, or if they're high enough up, it doesn't matter. Or what about interactions with aerial raptors or other birds?
Yeah, Rhonda, that's a great question. Like it's a lot of multifaceted information I'll give you, but I'll try and reduce that. Birds, absolutely. It's a real problem for drones and obviously a problem for birds. When we ran the Lake Kivu Challenge, when I ran that competition in Western Rwanda, DR Congo, we flew over an island that had nothing on it on the satellites. I took a boat out, had a look, and it's the largest roost of the African straw-backed flying fox. And yet we had no idea. So, of course, environmentally, we couldn't fly anywhere near it. Drones do scare animals, the shadow often scares birds and they leave their roost, and you don't want to keep that disturbance happening. When it comes to other animals, we don't really know that. Son Dylan is doing a research piece on whales, manta rays, etc., dolphins. When a whale crosses from Victoria to New South Wales, the rules on how close you can fly with a drone change. I mean, really? It's still on the same piece of water, right? It goes to PNG, the rules change. To Timor-Leste, the rules change. What is actually correct? How close should we swim, boat, drone, fly aircraft to animals is something that we need to put together. And we don't yet know the answer to your question. We do know that you can herd elephants. Mara Elephant Project, one of our strong partners here in Kenya, with a range of conservancies out to the southwest, they've been using for a decade, they've been using drones to take elephants away from areas where they shouldn't be. You think, oh, that's not very nice scaring the elephants. But actually, they're in human-wildlife conflict. They will be damaged, they will be hurt by the farmers. So herding them out using drones is a great job. There's a lady on our Society of Conservation Biology, Emma group, Emma from northern New South Wales. They're using drones to muster cattle. So yeah, drones have an impact on animals, but there are, on the other side of that, you can use them for positive.
So David, that leads me to another follow-up question then. Is there when you become a drone pilot, is there an ethical sort of a checklist for pilots to be able to, on what you can and cannot do with your drones when it comes to wildlife?
Yeah, Sarah, look, drone pilots are multifaceted as well. There's professional ones and there's those that don't want to know the rules and those that don't know the rules. Most drones are going to be harmless. They're invading people's privacy. When you're flying around wildlife, any type of wildlife, you should know the rules. Of course, you have to know the aviation regulations and privacy regulations, security, but you have to know what the rules. They're really hard to find. I have a website that I've been funding since 2017 called the Global Drone Regulations Database. We've taken that offline because we're trying to rebuild that to be the drones in conservation community, I think it's going to be called. And it'll be, you go to Zambia. Where can I fly drones? What's the rule set for aviation? Who do I go to for permissions? What's been learnt locally that we can share? That will answer many of those questions, but at the moment, there's no real training course for it. Some people in the field have put together some training courses, and after this forum, which starts in 3 weeks, I know, World Wildlife Day is 3 weeks. After the forum, we're going to Mara Elephant Project with a group of people who have already designed courses. We're going to try and put a framework together for drone pilots in conservation, including the media, who I often see quite close to animals when potentially they shouldn't be.
Excellent. All right. Have we got some questions on the chat? Let's have a look.
Yeah. I've got a question, David.
Yeah, go for it.
That's really interesting about these rules. So part of our Sea Shepherd shark defense campaign, we're training up our volunteers to operate drones to actually monitor shark nets and shark activity. So the rules are really important, but often we don't know what those rules are and they do change. So is there something that you're going to develop that can apply in Australia as well?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I've talked to Sea Shepherd quite a bit about that and offered help because it's so positive. We don't want to use shark nets or shark hooks, I believe. If they need to be used, let's get out there with better tech, with drones and understand what sharks and what dangers there are. Rules will be there for Australia at some stage. That'll come out of what we're doing in Africa. And right now there's the association, it's called the Australian Association of Uncrewed Aircraft, AAUS, uncrewed systems. And they are the people to touch base with. I haven't done a lot in Australia because, pardon me, we've been overseas for 13, 14 of the last 25 years. But certainly, yeah, there are rules. And also remembering you need to fly beyond visual line of sight. So that complicates brings the complexity and the safety risk up higher.
Yeah. Thanks, David.
Good question. Mac, did you have your answer to your question? You said, have you seen data around wildlife responding to the presence of drones? Did David respond to that to the level you needed?
Yeah,
good. Awesome.
Except I am wondering which animals take the most notice. Do elephants notice it more than wildebeest, or what animals are likely to take more notice of a drone going overhead?
Oh, certainly elephants. We've unfortunately scared elephants away from where they've been foraging in the past using drones, and we're super careful now. We'll find out more this hackathon in on Friday next. We get the train up to Nanyuki. In that following 10 days, we'll find out a lot more, and I'll come back to you, Rhonda, at some stage, either message through Sarah or whatever, and we'll find out more.
Sounds
By the way,
good.
you probably know that, they're using not only dogs to sniff out koalas, but they're using drones and thermal cameras across Australia for that.
Yeah, absolutely. David and Linda, did you want to talk to that a little bit?
I guess, we're involved with projects using thermal drones, and we hope very much to be involved in some more because it's such an ideal way to cover large amounts of area efficiently and in a way that causes very minimal disturbance to the koalas in the trees. And the results from a good drone pilot operating are fantastic. We've commissioned a couple of surveys last year, and we've got some more in train later on this year as well. So it's just fantastic technology, and it's only going to get better. And that the resolution of the imaging is going to get better, and we see a whole lot of improvements. Really, it's a really good way to understand more about animal populations, particularly koalas, but all sorts of other animals too. Really.
Absolutely. And Rhonda, you said that you'd love to see the shark nets taken down, wouldn't we all? Is it possible to herd sharks away from beaches with drones? I know they're using drones in trial capacities in Queensland to spot sharks, to give warnings, but is it possible to herd them?
Maybe, Sarah, just 20 seconds. We ran a project in the Maldives in health. People think, oh, wow, how wonderful, but it was quite challenging. And we met a whole lot of people in the marine conservation space there, and they've tested flying drones as close to any sort of marine wildlife as they can while they've been underwater, and they've watched the wildlife, and there's been absolutely no reaction. Even trying to fly shadows across the front of various animals, sea animals, no reaction at all.
Oh, so that won't work then. Bad luck, Rhonda. Bad luck.
Is there any possibility of emitting some sound that the sharks don't like from the drone close to the water?
That's a good one. Let's look at that one.
Yeah, it's a good idea. All sorts of really brilliant ideas. Any other questions? What do we got? Wong, I have a question for you. Is there a way, because you're in a very dense rainforest situation, is there any way that drones can be used in wildlife in such a dense environment?
Yes, absolutely. So we have been talking about with researchers working with drones to install a thermal camera to fly across the forest canopy at nighttime and then scan for any, warm-blooded animals like a sun bear sleeping high on top of the tree. And then, we are working. We have acquired, this kind of technology. But the last times where we asked, unfortunately, the cost for this kind of thermal cameras and also the drones is expensive. But definitely, in the future, when the drone cameras costing and everything's can be more friendly, then we can apply this kind of technology because it's very cost effective. If you were to do sensing, say for example, try to find out every single animals in the area, and that might be a good way to do it.
Yeah, well, that's certainly the way that the thermal imaging cameras being used with koalas is to actually, count populations. So that's definitely something that could happen with sun bears, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. If it worked for koala, then they should work for the sun bear as well.
Yeah, there we go, David. You're in.
I'm ready to come along and help.
You're ready.
Right. Yeah, my door is wide open.
Okay, guys. Oh, you guys have done such a great job. today. So we're going to introduce something really new. For the last 3 minutes we've got of World of Wildlife, we're going to introduce something very, very new called Mara's Minutes. Now, Mara was the intern working with me over the last few weeks, and this is her idea. So we would like to pick on one of you to actually give a 3-minute update on what you're doing or something that's really important to you. So all be warned, next month, one of you will be picked on. This month, it's going to be Rhonda. Are you ready, Rhonda? Your 3 minutes starts now.
Okay. Well, just to quickly introduce myself, I'm a zoologist, PhD in zoology, and I'm a research ecologist, but also run tours, and I'm chair of Wildlife Tourism Australia. Well, my main thing coming up next month is my 6th trip to Sabah. And the main reason is that Albert Teo, who runs and owns the Borneo Eco Tours, has invited David Newsom and myself to spend a few days at Sukau on the Kinabatangan River, which is absolutely wonderful, for the launch of a massive guide training manual that David and I have been working on for over a year now. So we're launching that, and very nicely, he's naming 2 of his cabins after us, which surprised me and quite thrilled me. And he's also going to announce us as being conservation fellows of Sukau, which is also very nice. And also I'm going to see the printed version of a children's wildlife activity book that I wrote and illustrated a couple of years ago. I haven't actually seen it in print yet, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. It's about the wildlife of the Kinabatangan with various puzzles and colouring in and so on. And I'm giving a talk on animal-plant interactions, especially animals and plants that help each other with seed dispersal and pollination. I'm writing a book on Australian examples of that at the moment, but I'm giving a talk on Borneo examples. And I'm hoping that Jatna Supriyatna, senior scientist from Indonesia, who is a primate ecologist, but also now very interested in ecotourism as a conservation tool, I'm very much hoping he'll be joining us. He might have to join late, but and he'll be giving a talk. Now, I'm also, before I go to Sukau.
Well done. Keep going. You've got 1 minute left.
Before I go to Sukau, I'm meeting with Johnny Lim, who's the current president of the Corridors, the Kinabatangan Corridors for Life Tourism Association, and talking with some of his guides about sustainable wildlife tourism. I'm going to spend a day looking at the orangutans in Sukau, in Sepalok, especially the young orangutans' play behaviour to compare with chimpanzee play behaviour I've studied at Taronga Zoo. I hope I get time to nip over to the sun bears as well. It'll be my 3rd visit there. Then Deirdre Julius Coolip, who asked me to be a keynote speaker on a webinar they ran last year for the Imbak Canyon Conservation Society, has asked me to come with her for 2 days deep into virgin forest to the Miliau Basin, and also give a talk on the animal-plant interactions there. And so I think is that 3 minutes?
10 seconds or 5 seconds. We've done. Oh, well done. That was very impressive. Very impressive there, Rhonda. Great job. Let's give Rhonda a big round of applause for being the first cab off the rank there. That was pretty amazing. Oh, there goes my timer. Great job, Rhonda. Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed the first ever Mara's Minutes. I'll pick on another one of you next time. So make sure that you're ready to give us an update on what you're doing. Don't forget, this is a place to connect with the people that are here too. So if, for instance, there's anyone here that you want to connect with, send me a message on my website, saraharpie.com, and I'll reach out to the people that are here and see if they're willing to be connected back. So we'll act as that sort of, that little clearinghouse in the middle for privacy reasons. But other than that, one more thing to tell you before you go is next month, that'll be March 10th, we will have a really interesting speaker, another one called Professor Phil Bell. He's from the University of New South Wales. He's a paleontologist. So You might think paleontology has nothing to do with live wildlife, but it certainly does. And bones from paleontology are poached just as much as they are wildlife. So we're going to hear about the poaching of paleontology and bones next time. I hope to see you all here. Be wonderful to see you. Please share the link when you get it, when you get your email. Share it with people wide, nationally, globally, wherever. And let's keep this community growing. Thank you so much for being here, everybody.